Today, it's my distinct honor to introduce Angela Macfarlane. Angela's a good friend of Fogarty Innovation, Stanford Design, Biodesign, and the medtech ecosystem in general. Angela's an icon in our industry and known for her creativity, her insight, her passion, and her commitment. She's recognized as one of medtech's most sought out and effective mentors. I've had the pleasure of actually co-mentoring with Angela and was totally in awe of her ability to move through the superficial nature of conversations that we all typically have about what we think we should do, what we want to do. And she really gets right down to the brass tacks. She's able to connect with mentees on a really, truly authentic level. Her belief in authenticity is well known, respected, and sought after by many in our industry. And today it's the basis of her lecture. So we're very fortunate to have her speaking about authenticity because it is so important in terms of being able to make the right decisions and know ourselves. She's a dynamic leader and inspiring role model. She currently serves as a CEO for Foresight, CEO of Buoyant Biopharmaceutics, and an active leader in the Fairland Fellowship Program. And beyond that, she's on boards, she's on advisory panels, she's sought out by just about everybody. So we're really lucky to have her in her time today. And despite the traditional success in medtech, it wasn't her first foray. Where she came from was out of the legal field. She did start in the judicial system at the United States District Court. And as she was getting interested in startup companies and early stage opportunities, she realized that medtech was a place where strong need for IP strategy was really critical. So her first job at Vitamed and later joined Anurex, where she met Dr. Tom Fogarty, our founder, and a great mentor to many people in the field. And really where she developed from that perspective was that patients are waiting. That's kind of the rallying call for many of us in the industry, that it's a privilege and opportunity and responsibility that patients are truly waiting for the work that we're all doing. So with that entry into the field, Angela has done many things in terms of founding companies. She was a founder of the Foresight Labs, which was a collaboration between Foundry and Eugene DeWalt. This has spun out almost, I think, is it 6 companies now, Angela? And
8.
8, okay. See, I can't keep up with the count of all the things that she's doing. But really, I think, instead of lauding all the different accomplishments that Angela has done, you'll be able to see that, in her talk. So without further ado, I'd really like to introduce Angela and thank her very much for being a speaker today. Angela?
Wow, Mike, I'm really touched by that introduction. I think I really appreciate it. I'm going to take a minute. So lovely to be here and to see all of you. I'm very honored to speak at this forum because it really does represent, not only the building of the diversity coalition, but also, the connection between biodesign and Fogarty, which I think is a very powerful force in our ecosystem. So I have a few slides. I don't know, I'm just going to speak to them loosely, actually, but thought it might be good to at least put them up so we can use them as a guide. So I'm Angela Macfarlane. When I was younger, I thought I would be an artist. Then I thought I would be an FBI profiler. But I became a lawyer. And I think ultimately I became an innovation advocate. And I've spent the last 25 years as an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I've been part of many teams, as Mike mentioned, started over 20 companies, both in devices, in drugs, and currently in the gene therapy space. So the idea of really pushing the envelope and changing healthcare. 15 years ago, I was asked by one of my mentors to become the CEO of Foresight Labs, which is an ophthalmic incubator that Mike mentioned. It took them over a year to recruit me, And that was not because I played hard to get. That was because I fought with doubt. And it started my journey where I learned, this saying they have, that to lead authentically is taking an exquisite risk. And I'll walk you through a little bit of that journey quickly. I think I traditionally looked at leadership as, the traditional control, confidence, and power as being the elements in a leader and a CEO. And I realized quickly that's the antithesis of leadership. That letting go, vulnerability, humility, the foundation of authentic leadership. And my journey, because I only have 10 minutes, I put it in the format of what I call kind of a book chapter. So chapter 1, not good enough. The sub-chapters of chapter 1 would be entitled Fear and Belief I Needed to Change, and Who Am I and Who Should I Be? And I think this really represents kind of the idea of coming into a role, into a leadership role, into a CEO role, kind of how I was viewing that in terms of what do I need to be that I am not, versus how do I bring my authentic self to that role and optimize from that perspective. I met with my team the first time and I basically said, look, I've got a disclosure for you. And it's a weakness of mine. I want you guys to know about it all up front. And that is that I'm highly empathic. And I'm going to try and really my hardest to kind of keep that at bay. And obviously over time, what I realized is that that was one of my greatest strengths. And so I started stepping into leadership as it related to what I called featuring my quote weakness. I found that relying on that and really embodying the values that I held dear and what I really how I wanted to lead became an exercise in actually saying the words. And we'll talk a little bit about that, just in terms of the words I've chosen that over my career not only defined me, who I am, but they also define how I run my business. And that closing of the gap between where you are and where you think you should be, when there's a big gap there and you think that there's a doubt about what I am and what I'll bring in terms of ultimate leadership, there's a dissonance. And essentially getting on that journey and finding that authenticity that you bring forward into your leadership journey, essentially is the resonance in your career. And it's very powerful. And that's really learning for me. My third chapter would be called Humility and the Importance of Stakeholder Input, which is really this way that it's not just who I am or what I'm bringing to leadership, but it's how I'm focused on the result I want to bring for my stakeholders. And this is kind of an interesting exercise in really understanding, the mission. I'd say the fourth chapter, maybe I got to this a couple of weeks ago, some years into the process, is what I call the confidence of ease. And the idea is that when you reduce this dissonance in terms of who you are, what you do, how you lead, you step into a sense of ease around your leadership style, around how you perform, what you think, who you attract. And that confidence of ease is really, an interesting place to be and a great goal. Chapter 5 would be called Losing Ego, Gaining Freedom. And just a very quick way to say that what you think coming into a role or what you think about being a CEO or leadership in general is really about the loss of ego or the loss of self into the focus on the mission and the great freedom in that. And I think the epilogue of the book would say this, because I do think that what this is it's a constant process in terms of every time we are tested, and particularly in the bad times, how do we bring that authentic leadership? Just quickly, because we only have 10 minutes, I'm just giving you a sense of those words that I say. The words that kind of define me and sense of values. And the sense of my personal values actually now being completely resonant with my business values. And what you're seeing up here are the foresight values. And we say them in terms of when we do something, we are something, because it truly integrates kind of this sense of being able to speak about words like truth, impact, courage, kindness, and freedom in the context of your business. And when you can own that, when you have that confidence of ease in terms of who you are, what you bring, it becomes very resonant in terms of how you're, doing your daily job in a leadership setting. So just to kind of say, I would not be here or have any of these opportunities Mike spoke about if it weren't for my mentors. I have been lucky to have, renowned physicians be my mentors, leading business people in our space be my mentors. And in particular, I want to speak about one mentor in particular who had a great impact on my life and something that is continuing that I think is going to be interesting even for this group to learn about. And that's the Farrelline Fellowship. Farrelline Powell was a leader in medtech. She ran eval for over 14 years, sold it to Abbott, and it's become one of the defining cardiovascular innovations in our field. She died 5 years ago in a tragic accident, and we set out to start a mentorship program in her name. It's the opposite of this in that it's a 1-year program in a very small group where you're paired with a host mentor for a year. And I'll tell you a few things about the learnings, and then we can get to the mentoring, which will be fun. So our goal in the Farrelline Fellowship is, to create this vibrant and diverse community of aware leaders bringing the next generation of healthcare. We do that by an invested, high impact mentoring that changes lives. And this woman changed my life, and this is part of what we're talking about here today, is how do we, in small ways and in large ways, bring mentorship to the goal of a vibrant, diverse community. A few notes about mentorship, and then I'll close. And things we've learned over the past 5 years in some of these more intense settings, and Mike has described some mentoring we've done, is that mentoring, in my mind, is about the affinity of necessity. So not same, not women necessarily just mentoring women, not someone in marketing mentoring someone in marketing, but where is there a situation where you together can solve a problem, and bringing you together around that problem is the affinity. Because there's a problem, it's necessary that you are brought together. And when you find those affinities around problem solving, or if you find a mentor around looking at problems that need to be solved, it's a very powerful connection. At the fellowship, we do what we call in context mentoring, which is a stress situation, being with you when you're in that stressful time. That creates a bond. Couple that with a safe space to reveal imperfections that create connections that then allow that trust and allow that very, very expedited situation where you can both discover your strengths and show your weaknesses on the path to who you are as a leader, and how you really document that. And as we like to say, step into it, inhabit it, bring it into who you are. And in doing that, we found very powerfully that we can point to success metrics from a business standpoint based on this type of mentoring. So as we transition into the speed mentoring, one of the questions I would ask you, and if you're meeting with me, I've looked at who you are, so let's start here. Share a current situation or path to highlight an in-context struggle. What is in your way? Let's start with that. And I look forward to meeting as many of you as I can. And again, thank you for the privilege of telling some of my story here today.